The next topic we are going to talk about is, does AI make companies happy and their employees? And we have many observations from our work with our clients in this space. So maybe to take a little bit of an Oktoberfest image, AI is a huge hype, and companies have huge expectations of what is going to change in their business and how they're going to become more efficient, deliver better service to their customers. And at the same time, we see that many companies feel like on the right-hand side, I don't know if you know the lawn behind the Theresienwiesen, where people end up that drank a little bit too much. There's a bit of disillusion, and the question, is the investment actually worth the effort? Should we push forward with this direction? And from our work with our clients, what we observe is companies are doing essentially three things. The first one is they deploy AI within their organization. This is basically providing access to ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever. And this is nice, but it's essentially table stakes. You increase efficiency by a few percent, you maybe free up a bit of capacity, but it's not changing the game in your organization. Much more impactful, and that's what we see several companies doing, not all of them, is reshaping end-to-end their customer journeys and the processes supporting these customer journeys. And this takes a lot of effort. It's not about building individual AI use case and identifying a long list of 10, 20 AI use cases that you might build into your organization. You need to actually change processes and how you interact with customers and so on to actually gain value from AI in this field. And much more radical is invent, which is building competitive advantage and really reshaping your part of the industry, as just observing from externally, Hyundai is doing in their field, as far as we can see. And many companies struggle in all these three areas. And the AI is not a problem in realizing the potential in these fields. Alone in the last few months, the technology has developed exponentially again. And many hurdles that we saw at the beginning of the year are going away. With some technicalities, context windows are increasing, so AI can process more data and take in more context and be more intelligent about how they interact with us. There are omnimodal models, so you can also interact with voice and images and videos and so on. The ways we use AI models is becoming more sophisticated, so we don't just use large language models to generate text, we also have more sophisticated chain of thought approaches, which OpenAI is using in their O1 model, for example. And also problems with hallucinations and so on are becoming less and less as we get self-monitoring solutions. And they become faster. I mean, with specialized hardware and more intelligent use of large language models and making them smaller, we can get much faster results. So companies don't have an excuse to not make it work. It's becoming easier and easier to implement it. What we observe is that many companies over-focus on the technical aspects. So what large language model do you use? How do you integrate it into your technical processes in your IT? This is the top 10 to 30% of what it takes to gain impact from AI in your organization. And a much bigger essential part is, how do you actually transform your people and the ways of working and the processes that they work on, their workflows. And this is hard work to actually fix this. I mean, it's not just about implementing some AI use case, you actually need to drive the change in your organization, you need to train people, educate them, change expectations with customers in many areas and so on. And getting these 70% right usually requires that you change and adapt your operating model in many areas on many levels. The first piece is companies need to build the right capabilities. So of course you need to have experts in your organization that are able to implement AI in your processes and get the right data and so on. We'll dive into this in more detail in a second. The second one is you need the right structure. So you need to make sure that your organization is aligned and doesn't create friction within its organization itself by overlapping and doing thousands of things at the same time. And you need to steer your organization. So there are thousands of things that you could do with AI in your organization, but you have very limited resources, limited time, and you need to be very conscious about what you do and what you don't do in the organization, make sure everyone works in the same direction. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So when we talk about capabilities, a lot of the focus is on how do we get the right AI experts into our organization. And of course, that's a key concern. You need the right expertise on board. But the much bigger issue that we see at most of our clients is how do you actually educate and train the people that use the AI in their day-to-day? And if you look at a typical distribution that you might have in an organization is you have maybe 5% of people that actually build AI, that know how to train a new model, prepare the data for an ML application and so on. But it's not more. You don't need much more than 5% of your FTEs in this field. Then the second piece, roles that govern AI, so make sure that you use AI responsibly, that you adhere to regulation and stay compliant and ethical. This doesn't take a lot of people. You need maybe 1-2% of your workforce that is focused on this and enforces this in the organization, but you don't need much more. Then roles that shape AI, in most organizations, that's going to be around 10 to 20%. So people that actually transform customer journeys end-to-end, transform the processes in your organization, create new products, and just drive the change and the development in your organization. Also only 10 to 20%. And the rest, the big bulk in your organization is going to be the roles that use. And this takes a lot of re-education and also maybe making sure that they interact politely, for example, with the AI and improve the collaboration over time. So this is a gap that we observe in many companies and where additional focus should be put. Then regarding structure, we won't go into the depths and the absolute detail of this, but some observations. We see that the companies that are most successful at applying and leveraging AI in their organization, they have a structure that is usually aligned along the customer journey. So it's not functional, where you have customer service ops and delivery and finance and HR separately. Oops, I'm sorry. You have an organization that is actually cut along the customer journey, which is not typical for many organizations, but has huge benefits. By aligning every team clearly to a step in the customer journey, you create very clear accountability and make it measurable what the teams deliver. It also allows you to very clearly differentiate where in the organization do you fully harmonize processes across all customer groups and geographies and so on. And where do you clearly, very consciously differentiate to meet the customer demands better. It also allows you to get AI expertise to the right points in the organization because it's a scarce resource. You won't have hundreds of AI experts in your organization. By having such a structure, it makes it a more conscious decision where do you deploy this expertise to transform certain steps of the customer journey. And then linked to this customer journey, of course, you have operations that then are closely synchronized to the change that happens in your customer journey and processes. What we also see in all organizations is you need some central element in your AI expertise. So you can't diffuse all your AI expertise across the organization. You need to have some central platform or center of excellence or whatever you call it, where you recruit the right capabilities, the right people with the right skills, and also create common platform elements that you need all across the organization. The most crucial thing, if you get the capabilities and the structure right, is to actually steer the organization in the right direction. And we see far too many companies that are just collecting long lists of use cases and prioritizing these use cases and trying to implement them without thinking about all the process changes and the people changes that need to be done to actually unlock the potential. What the most successful companies are doing is they start with very clear priorities. And this means that the C-level, so Klaus, in your case you give the organization a ranked list of what is important for the next year, for the next quarter. And this is an absolutely ranked list. So is it more important that we bring new products to the market, or is it more important that we enhance our quality or compliance or delivery capacity, for example? Is it more important that we reduce churn or that we fix issues in our existing product? This is something that most companies don't have yet, but that is essential to make sure that the whole organization works in the same directions and they don't overlap in their activities. The second piece is you need to invest into alignment across the organization. So the classical planning processes that you have in most companies, budgeting cycles and yearly planning, they don't create actual alignment across leadership and teams of what are we actually going to do in the next year or the next quarter, and what impact is this going to have in terms of objectives and key results that we generate. And this is something that needs conscious investments. The most successful companies do this, for example, in a yearly and in a quarterly cycle, where they bring all the relevant leaders and teams together and create actual common understanding of what is going to happen next, especially what are we not going to do in the next quarter to stay focused and actually be able to deliver results, and how everything fits together and where potential resource gaps and overlaps are. If you do all this alignment ahead of time, then you are able to do focused execution. So you have actually teams that are able to deliver without having friction with all the other parts of the organization, and get actual AI impact out, which is, for most companies right now, a key challenge. So how do you get started? I think the very first step should be to be ambitious. We see far too many companies just collecting use cases and looking for incremental gains, which in the short term is fine, but as we look longer term and dynamics in the market change and competitive advantage, sources of competitive advantage will change. Needs a much broader, more ambitious view. So better not to look for 10% increases and more for 10x change. Then you need to enable your organization to leverage AI, and this needs all the components that we just looked at, from having the right capabilities on board, having the right structure, having the right steering to actually deliver impact. And then again and again remind the organization and come back to the business value. Many exercises devolve into technical exercises where you try to use the latest and greatest tech to drive some impact, but you don't have the view anymore on, will this actually improve our revenues, our EBIT, or our employee satisfaction, for example. And this is something that should not be forgotten and that companies need to remind themselves again and again.